Welcome to the Ecom Profit Podcast. I am your host, Dawn Sinkula, and today I am going to talk to you about digital privacy and the impact that it has on digital marketing. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background as to why this is a topic that has become important to me as of recently. So over the last several weeks, I've had the opportunity to be part of a group that was sent to Washington, D.C. to talk to our government officials about data privacy and data accuracy and how that will impact the ability for digital marketers as well as small business owners to really grow and impact their business. Now, this was a completely paid for trip put on by Meta. They paid for us to go to Washington, D.C. They paid for us to stay in a hotel. They paid for us to talk to our government officials, did a wine and dine. It was all lovely. But there's a couple really smart things that Meta did regarding this. They brought a lot of different business leaders together that are not necessarily digital marketers. Okay, they're Facebook leaders in this Facebook Leaders Network that I'm a part of, but Facebook leaders, meaning they are small business owners that use Facebook and Instagram to grow their businesses. They are people who are active in their community locally, both in their state as well as in their local communities. They are people who are, like myself, digital marketers, and they brought us all together. Actually, not all of us. They picked 100 of us to go to Washington, D.C. to talk to our government officials. Okay, so great, right? And really smart from the perspective of Meta, because they really wanted government officials to hear kind of this grassroots approach to digital marketing and the importance of Meta. Now, you can argue all you want about whether you believe in Facebook, whether you don't believe in Facebook, so on and so forth. But what I will tell you is that there are more small businesses using Facebook and Instagram as their main method of growth than ever before. And with the kind of, huge growth impact of online businesses and the continued growth of online businesses, even well past COVID, I don't foresee the use of paid media going away anytime soon. And so Facebook recognizes this. And we obviously know there's been a lot of issues with the iOS updates. There's been a lot of issues with government legislation that's currently going on. There's a lot of issues right now with Meta and other and other paid media sources around data privacy and how important that is. So when we were chosen to go to Washington to talk about this, the thing that we really wanted to emphasize, or that I really wanted to emphasize with my government officials, it's not just a thing about Meta and Meta being the tool, although that's important. It's really around the use of data and how important that use of data is for us as small business owners that are using it to advertise, whether it's through Meta, TikTok, YouTube, whatever it is. That use of data is so important. And so, this really kind of then started this whole conversation and a little bit of controversy, I think, around the use of privacy and how important privacy is, not just for people who want to have that level of protection, but understanding kind of the whole umbrella of data collection and the use of that in digital marketing. And it was really interesting to me to understand kind of both sides of the aisle here with our government officials. I had the opportunity to talk to someone who was a Republican, and I had the opportunity to talk to someone who was a Democrat. And the thing that I will tell you that was encouraging from both sides was that they both understand that there is an opportunity or a challenge that is going to happen if the wrong legislation gets enacted, or if there is a complete lack of understanding from our government officials of what this actually can do to small business. I think both sides were very open and very interested in learning about what I had to say and what other small businesses had to say. And I think that to me was really encouraging. They knew that there's an opportunity. They knew there's a problem. They knew there's something that needs to change or some sort of guidelines or guardrails that need to be put in place for both consumers, but also as well as small business owners. And I think this really brought up the topic for me when I think about it from a marketing perspective of, what happens if we don't have the ability to use data in our marketing systems or in our marketing kind of strategies, and how that would actually impact me as a digital marketer, but then also my clients, and how challenging that would actually be. So when I went to explain this, sort of why data collection in digital marketing agencies is important, the one thing I did start to notice is that there is a real lack of understanding that the role of data has in a marketing strategy. What became very obvious to me was that a lot of our government officials and even business owners and consumers don't understand why data collection is important as a marketer and what it is really being used for. We're thinking about this very much from the privacy side of things. And I agree, there needs to be the ability for people to choose how they want their data to be used. But I also think that if everyone sort of had a better understanding of how that data was actually being used as it relates to digital marketing, then you may or may not, again, controversial perhaps, but you may or may not be more open to understanding how important the collection of data is in the digital marketing path. Now, the one thing that I did think most of our officials understood was, let's talk about Meta, for example, Facebook and Instagram, that they knew that if, they were shopping on a website and then they were scrolling on Facebook or Instagram, they would get an ad that would be targeted to them based on, what they were just shopping at. And so we went through the, conversation of understanding that, that's a pixel, and that little piece of code from Meta kind of tracks your user behavior, allows us as digital marketers to be able to put that information in front of the right people at the right time. And the iOS updates that happened kind of kiboshed that a little bit and made it very challenging, because it allowed people to opt out from Apple if they wanted to not share that information via the website or different apps or tools or things like that, right? And so, as we were talking through this little piece of data collection, and there's a lot more that are out there, but this little piece of data collection, I said, is really one of those things that if that goes away, or that ability to, kind of track the shopping behaviors, it makes it very hard for us to put the right type of advertising in front of the right person. And one of the government officials said, "Yeah, but I hate that. I just hate that." And I said, "Okay, so, it feels creepy. I get that. And it feels kind of like, you're being followed around and stuff." But I said, "What if you just start getting ads that had nothing to do with anything that you were interested in at all? What if you started getting ads about, boxing, and you had no interest in boxing? What if you were getting ads about baby clothes and you were nowhere near having anything to do with baby clothes? Or if you were getting, information sent to you about businesses that had nothing to do with anything that you were interested in?" You'd get a lot more frustrated, I think, by that than the targeted ads that you're getting right now that seem like they're following you around, which is good, because that means that you have been shopping for that product, and that business is doing what it needs to do, or the marketer is doing what they need to do, and putting and serving you with the right type of, advertisement. And I think there was kind of a light bulb that went off a little bit, in that there's sort of this, balance that needs to happen between personalization and privacy. And I think that is probably where our officials are really trying to find that balance between what is considered, privacy and what is considered personalization. And this was the example that I gave of how that personalization really is important versus not being able to, feed up or serve the right type of advertising to the right type of, a client or customer potentially. And I think, again, like that was kind of a moment of like, because what I don't think is going to happen is I don't think all of a sudden we're just going to see advertising go away and that these privacy laws are going to come into play and all of a sudden we're not going to be able to advertise to anybody. What I think is going to happen is that there's going to be this sort of overarching privacy policy or something that's going to come into play without really understanding the impact of that. And then we're all going to get these ads that have nothing to do with anything we're interested in. We're going to get more and more frustrated by that. So I think that was an important piece for me to share. I also think that there does need to be some transparency and consent to the use of your data, right? And I think that data collection and practices and the role of that user is important so that people understand what their data is being used for and what it's not being used for. And there's a lot of controversy around, GDPR and what, overseas is doing. There's a lot of controversy around California Privacy Acts and what California is doing and how that's impacting. And I think that is going to get bigger. I think we're going to see more of those sorts of legislation come into place. And I'm hoping that as marketers and as consumers and as business owners, we can really help inform not only our government officials, but also help inform our customers as to why this is an important part of doing business in the online space. We know that so many people now, I think it's something like 30% growth year over year is happening online right now, meaning people are buying more and more products online than they ever have before. And if we as business owners want our customers to have that experience that really is going to be customized to them, they're going to have to understand, and there's going to have to be some transparency around how that data is actually being used, what it's being used for. And we're going to have to be okay with people choosing to not have their data used in that way, but they also need to understand what that might potentially do to the type of, information that they're being served. So I don't think that there was, I didn't walk away from this event thinking, gosh, we have the solution, or geez, we have all of the information that's out there. They're well informed. Our government officials understand it, because I think there's a lot of business owners that don't understand it. I think there's a lot of marketing agencies that don't understand it. I think there's a lot of people who are still confused about, what did iOS actually do? What are some things that could potentially happen if some of these data privacy laws and regulations actually come into play? What is the impact of my business or on my business? What is the role that technology, Meta or otherwise, is going to have to play in this privacy and consent world that we are living in? So I think what I really took away from this is how I, as a business owner, can really offer actionable advice to not only my clients, but also to help encourage my clients to actually share with their customers how their data is being used, or why it's important for them to opt in to having that information served. Now, there can be kind of this whole controversial conversation after the fact of like, okay, well, if all of our, data is being stored by Meta, or if it's being stored by Apple, or it's being stored by this, what are they doing with it outside of just, marketing? And I'm not in the space to talk about that. That to me is a bit outside of the scope of what I want to stay in my lane to discuss. But I do think that there are, a lot of people that are concerned about data being used, for bad things, right? And not being used for good. But what I really want to speculate on here is the future of data privacy and the way that business is going to change has to be a consideration for the way that we as business owners do our own marketing, but then also how we help our customers understand what the impact to them is actually going to be. And so as you start thinking about your marketing strategies, as you start thinking about how you communicate to your customers, I think it's important through podcasts like this, through transparency in what you have on your website, sharing that you are, tracking cookies, giving people the opportunity to make a decision, but then also helping them understand what that decision actually is going to do as it relates to what they see in their newsfeed and what they see in their advertising. So again, really great opportunity, something that I was so honored to be able to be a part of. I thank Meta for the opportunity. We were not there to, like I said, speak specifically about Meta. Of course, we did to a certain degree, but it was really great opportunity to have this discussion around data privacy and the use of data privacy and what laws and sort of rules and regulations need to either be put in place or not put in place to help small business owners continue to be able to grow and scale online. Our livelihoods are dependent on whether our government officials really understand what's going on and how this is being used. So as a business owner, as someone, both myself and as you, the podcast listener, I encourage you to get educated about what data privacy looks like, not only in your state, but what your government officials actually feel about data privacy and how that's actually going to impact you as a business owner if you're choosing to do business online. I think it's going to impact brick and mortar businesses. I think it's going to impact all of us to a certain degree. And I know there's a lot of ethical considerations that need to be thought about. But you need to really understand as a small business owner what your take is on this and how your government officials are representing you in your state. If you're not really sure about how they are thinking about this, you certainly can go on to your government officials' websites. You can certainly have conversations with your government officials. It's shocking that you actually can go and have conversations with your government officials. Of course, you need to follow the chain of command and do all the things that you're supposed to, but your government officials oftentimes are in your state. They're in your local communities. They're not always just sitting in Washington, D.C. And you can go and have meetings and have conversations with them, or even just look at what they have on their websites and understand a little bit more about how they're thinking about this whole role of data collection and how it relates to digital marketing. I encourage you to be an advocate for yourself, whatever side of the aisle you are on. Make sure that you as a business owner understand, know where you stand, and educate yourself, as the impact of this is going to be life-changing for us as it relates to digital marketing. And we're going to have some serious legislation that's going to be coming up in the next couple of months and in this year that are going to really change the way that we are able to do business. So I encourage you to get educated, understand how your leaders and how your government officials are actually voting for you as a small business owner, and make sure that you have a voice in how that actually is going to impact you as a business owner. Get educated, be a voice for yourself, and be aware of the impact that this could potentially have. I encourage you, if you have questions, if you have comments, or if you've got any educational information that you have used to learn more about how the role of data and marketing strategies can impact you, or things that you have done as a business owner to become more educated or share with your leaders, government officials, please comment. Let us know how that is. I'd love to have conversation with those of you who are, advocates for this, who have really taken a stand and who have talked about it with your government officials, or even with your local business SBA groups, or even local networking groups. And if you haven't yet thought about this as a business owner, get yourself educated, look at what your government officials are doing, and let's have an open and honest dialogue, regardless of what side you're on, about how this needs to help us all, both privacy and business owners, so that we can move forward and all achieve what we want to. Thank you guys so much for listening. I look forward to getting feedback from you. For those of you who have done this, please comment, please share, please email me. And until next time, thanks for listening to the Ecom Profit Podcast.